What's up, everybody? Thanks for stopping by the show. If this is your first time listening, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. It's good to have you with us. What do we got? Well, first of all, if you are getting something out of this show and you've been listening and, I'm providing some sort of value to you, or entertainment value or educational value, maybe you've learned something that you didn't know. This is kind of a value for value thing. If I'm giving something to you, I'd like to get something back. And whether that's a share on social media, rating and reviewing on iTunes, any of those things, even as far as monetarily. I mean, I could always use the help. I've been floating this thing for almost 3 years now, so lots of money's gone into it. Would love to be able to monetize in some sort of way at some point. What else? I'm on Rumble, and I'm also on YouTube. You can catch these, the video versions of these. Usually I'll have the links down in the description. So, what else do we got? I think that's it. It's pretty much the same thing, The next guest that I'm going to have for you, though, that conversation's pretty deep. It's veering into some topics that I don't usually get into, so that might be interesting. Today I'm talking to Mark Paine. He is the creator or founder of the evegrowing concepts. It's basically vertical growing of food, or anything that you'd like to grow it vertically. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. He's got a YouTube channel, and he's just passionate about growing food and composting. And so I figured I would start getting a little bit more into that, because I myself have been growing food. Started a garden and been planting a bunch of stuff, and we talk a little bit about that too. I feel like it's very important now that the supply chain issues, and also the impending food shortages that we keep hearing about. So it's not a bad idea to start going back to some of those older methods of things, like growing your own stuff, learning how to what's that called? To can your own things, how to preserve your own food, because you don't know. We got so used to this lifestyle of fast food. If we go to the store, there's never you never want for anything in the United States, mostly. But that could all change. I haven't seen it yet, but it's, from what I hear, it's coming. So it's not a bad idea to learn how to grow food. And this is a great idea for people, especially you can grow all year round with this system. So great conversation. And I'm just going to leave it at that. It was a great conversation, and I'm looking forward to doing a little bit more with Mark too, outside of this, and some of the things that I'm working on for the nonprofit. I think this would be a great teaching tool for children in schools as well. So looking forward to talking more with Mark. And so I hope you enjoy the show as much as I enjoyed the conversation. And let's just get to it.
Sean Dustin spent time in federal and state prison for drug trafficking and fraud. Upon release in 2006, he had nothing but the clothes on his back, a bag of mail, and legal paperwork. In 2010, he kicked a long-time methamphetamine habit and started the long climb back up the ladder of life. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. If you want transparency and authenticity, you're in the right place. This is the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast, and this is Sean Dustin.
Today we have Mark Paine with us from the evegrowing concepts. And I met Mark on a Clubhouse room. Surprise, surprise. That's where I spend a lot of my time socializing, is on Clubhouse. And the reason why is that there's an assortment of different folks on there that are professionals in almost a lot of different things. There's so many talented people on Clubhouse that are willing to give their perspectives, help out, share their knowledge, in a lot of different things. You know, there's any itch you could possibly have, you'll find a way to scratch it on Clubhouse, I'm pretty sure. And so this is where I found Mark in a preservation of the human race room, talking about growing food and soil and how important the soil is. And the reason why this is so important that I figure at this time, because this podcast sort of like flows with my interests, right? So it's like one week I might be interested in one thing and the next week I'm interested in something else. But this is something that's really important because food insecurity is going to become something that we're going to have to contend with in the future. And the reason why I say this, and I think that a lot of people are not aware of this yet because mainstream media is not covering it. I just recently, probably within the last week, heard President Biden talk about shortages of food, but it wasn't anything that he went into detail about. He just sort of like on the off mentioned, we might be experiencing food shortages. So we're going to get a little bit into that, into why we think that. The Ukrainian war with Russia has a lot to do with it. And then also, too, different, just all kinds of different aspects of growing and everything that goes along. Because it's almost like a rotating mechanism, machine, right? That has to have this in order to have this, in order to have that, in order to have that, in order to feed us. And if all of these things in between going to feed us aren't happening, us don't get fed or us don't get as much food as we would normally require. And so I just think that in the future, it's going to be a lot of learning how to do without less, or learning how to do with less, or get the same doing less, learning how to eat less, learning how to intermittent fast, and learning how to do all these things that we used to have to do back in the day when food wasn't as prevalent. The Great Depression. My grandparents were a part of the Great Depression. And as a result of that, my father is a food hoarder. He has three giant freezers in his garage, and he's got another freezer at his work full of food. And that is a product of the Great Depression, because in the Great Depression, they didn't necessarily know when they were going to get their next meal. So, with that, let me introduce to you Mark Paine from Evegrowing Concepts. What's up, Mark?
Yeah, hey, how's it going, Sean?
Good. I just wanted to contextualize a little bit for the audience, sort of why we're here, and what's your perspective on why we're here, as far as what you've been listening to on Clubhouse and what you've been gathering. As to why this is such an important time for people to learn about growing their own food.
Yeah, totally. Thank you, Sean, for even having me. That's great. The preservation of the human race, Clubhouse in general, it's just been a great app. Like YouTube, we call it YouTube University for good reason. There's a lot of people on YouTube, like Clubhouse, that share their information freely. They're not looking for anything. They're just excited to share what they know. And preservation of the human race is where I met you. We have some amazing conversations there as far as what's happening. Stuff you don't get on the news. You just don't get it. And stuff's coming down the pike, I think. And even if it's not, growing food and learning how to make soil is a survival skill we should know. We lost the art of it. And these days, with today's technology, we can gain it back, and it'd be a lot easier than it used to be in the olden days. The horizontal, growing horizontally. We can grow vertical now using soil. Very important. I always have to stress using soil, growing vertically, because I contend that whatever the soilless grower can do, the aeroponics and hydroponics can do, we who grow with soil can do it far better. And it's better for the planet because we're not tied into some corporate entity for our growing needs. And that's important. We want to be as self-sustainable as possible. And when you know how to make soil, and it's very simple, like you were just showing me your outside composting bin, just put it in a pile, cover it with a carbon or a dry hay, leaves. It's just amazing. And I think it holds, first of all, I think it's far better than our commercial farming. You know, if I'm going too far on a tangent here.
No. The one thing I want you to do though for me is your audio is a little bit muffled. So is your microphone? Where's your microphone on your head?
See if I can't take this right off.
And I can even raise up your.
No, you're down low for me.
All right, is that better?
Yeah, I'm hearing you better.
Okay,
can you hear me better?
Yeah, I've got some controls here. Sorry, everybody. I just want to make sure that I get the best possible audio quality that I can for you. So that's
Let's try these Apple Buds too. Maybe they're better than the other ones. Wait a minute here. Technical. Let me get my technical people here.
Yeah, let me call my my editing crew in here and have them take a look at this.
Let's see here. All right. Let's see. How's that sounding? Oh. All right, how's that sound?
It sounds the same. Nope, no. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't think this is on.
Yeah, I don't think it's on too. But it sounds great the way it is right now. Whatever you were doing, it was just muffling because the microphone for those earbuds was scratch. You know, have you ever listened to somebody trying to talk on Clubhouse?
Right.
And the microphone scratches against their whatever it is they're wearing. So every time they move their head, you hear.
Yeah, right. How about now? This is an Apple kind of not. Can you hear me good now?
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, I hear you real good.
Okay. So let's, you weren't going on a tangent. That's definitely one of the things that we want to talk about. And when you talk about the soil, you're not using soil. You're just using composted materials that you've composted yourself, right? And
yeah, essentially we're talking container growing, like you'd think of growing in a pot. It's all compost from my leaves outside to all my house compost inside, which I feed to my red wigglers. It's about, you can't just use, with my system, you just can't go out in your backyard and fill a bucket or a 55-gallon drum or whatever. You have to make it. And when you start making it, you build upon it. And like me, I'm going on 8 years now. I have a lot of soil that I keep. My soil is something that's a part of me, really. When I think about it, it's kind of strange to think like that, but it's soil. It's composted soil, so you can't never to be confused with dirt or clay or whatever. But
yeah, because it's all made out of organic materials, and when we were talking before, I mean, you've even figured out a way to be able to use your own waste, which you can't just throw it in the compost pile. It has to be dealt with in a different way before it's added into a compost, right? And so you've figured out how to not waste anything in your system, is what I'm gathering.
Right. It's all organic, and nothing leaves our house if it's organic. It doesn't leave our house. Cardboard, paper is so important. I call it PUD. Potential urban duff, and duff is another acronym, Diterious under forest floor. And get yourself a shredder, because you literally can make soil out of the stuff that comes our way every day that we send to the landfill. And it's a survival skill in a sense that no matter where you live, even in the cities, you can make your own soil and grow your own food with stuff that's being thrown away all day long, especially organic so-called waste. It's exciting for me because it works. And I buy nothing. I need no Miracle Grow or anything. And I always call the angels of the soil the red wiggler, or worms in general.
So not to interrupt you, but why are worms so important? What is their function in composting?
Yeah, the worms bring the biodiversity, I feel. When you have a worm bin, there's a lot of different critters in there, microbes that follow them, that treat them like, from my experience, they treat them like like gods almost. Nothing hurts these red wigglers. Mites, let's say mites, springtails, potworms, anything on the microbial world, for me, and it's gone a long time, and I have this system called vermenting, where it's a bunch of buckets. If you go on my YouTube channel, it's a different system where you pack all your organic material in a bucket, and you wait a certain time, like vermenting. This is like fermenting. This is vermenting, and you wait 8 weeks. Your stuff is turned into garden gold or worm castings with this particular system. And the reds break it all down, and all the biodiversity as well that follows them break it all down. It's it's an amazing thing that is the soil amendment. That's the nutrients I add to my soil base, which is my outside leaves and all the carbon, whatever dry brown material. Carbon, when you think of carbon, dry or brown materials is usually thought of as carbon. Wet or green is thought of as nitrogen. You bring the two together, you put them in a vertical or a pallet bin, and you can literally just grow a lot of food in a little small space. And you're using your organic waste to do it.
Yeah, that's excellent. And part of the most important reason for doing that, and because you don't have to, like you said, you don't have to use the chemical fertilizers, which are going to be coming. One of the things that are going to be coming short in supply. We already have a supply chain issue, which the vulnerabilities in that were sort of spotlighted, I guess you would say, by the pandemic. And when stuff stops, stuff stops. When you shut down economies, they're not producing. People aren't going to work. People aren't doing this, and so that's going to create a bump in the system, I guess you would say. But to add a little bit more to that, we had a war break out in Ukraine and Russia. Russia and Ukraine, in that particular part of the world, 40% of the world's wheat comes from that area. And then you also have Russia, which produces a large portion of the world's fertilizers. And they have stopped exporting all of their fertilizing efforts just because they're dealing with the war and all that. So if you have 40% less wheat is made to wheat. You feed animals, right? That's a lot of what wheat feeds. It feeds people. It feeds animals. The food, our soil has become so stripped of all of its nutrients. It's nitrogen. It's what's the P? The P is potassium, or
yeah,
NPK. What's the NPK? Nitrogen, potash, potassium, phosphorus, and what's the K stand for?
Calcium.
Yeah,
calcium.
Yeah, maybe calcium, something like that. But anyways, our soils have become so stripped because we do the monocropping, and we never put other plants to rotate in there to replace some of the stuff. So they rely heavily on fertilizers. And so if we don't have any fertilizers, guess what? They're going to be growing a lot less. They're not going to be growing as much. And everybody who depends on that system is going to be suffering or go through some hardships, because we're not seeing it yet in the United States. And I don't think we're going to see it as hard as some of the third world countries. The third world countries, you're going to see a devastation and famine and death from starvation. Unfortunately, that's horrible. And I don't, there's nothing that you can do about that. You know?
It's a bummer. It's sad. And when you think of our commercial growing practices, they're outdated, truthfully. With today's technology, and I don't know, maybe nobody knows this, but you have to think of a jungle. When you go in a jungle that's not been touched by man, and you see this lushness in a forest or something, like, how did that happen? How did nobody touched it? How does it grow the plants that are there? That's what we have to mimic. That's what we have to figure out. And with our commercial growing, for so many years, we've been growing horizontally. We take the produce out because, most people think a tomato was made for people to eat. But truthfully, the tomato plant is made to propagate itself. The tomato drops the seed and the plant falls on top of it, and it makes the soil for itself. If you left it alone, you'd have a lot of tomatoes, feeding itself, essentially. Yeah. That's how we have to think about growing for ourselves. And it's hard to do that growing horizontally because with today's practices, they take the tomatoes out. They take who knows what they do with the leftover tomato crop. They probably just throw it away. How ignorant is that? When they should be composting that. That's the biodiversity they're losing. When they talk about biodiversity being lost in our commercial farming, all that biodiversity is coming to us individually all day long in the form of every farming practice you can think of. You know what I mean? Anything you throw away to go into the waste that's organic, that's a mistake. That's a missed mark. We're falling short when we throw organics away, and nobody knows what to do with them anyway. They double bag it, triple bag it so it doesn't smell. That's the heavy weight that these trucks come. They need to come every week. In my house, they could come once a month, maybe every 2 months. Yeah. Truthfully, imagine that. Think of the carbon we could save if these big heavy trucks only had to come once a month. Yeah. Instead of once a week, right there. So and if people knew how to grow plants with this organics that was going to the landfill is now being saved to the individual homesteads, or not just homesteads, anywhere.
Community garden. I mean, this is a perfect opportunity to, let's say, get together in your neighborhood. You've got these neighborhoods now that are cookie cutter, right? These urban urban neighborhoods that you have a street that has, let's say, 30 houses on it. And it's just as easy as getting together and saying, hey, let's start a community garden. And you assign a vegetable or a fruit to somebody, and each person is responsible for that. You take all of your, you agree that you all collect your organic materials and you put them all together, and you do a community compost as well. So you go straight from there instead of, adding. Let me ask you this. Can you add that to your already existing soil or do you just replace that soil with it? I mean, if you're mixing it together, it's not as strong, but it's still healthy, right?
Yeah, you build upon it year after year. Like my towers, they just keep adding the worm castings and the duff or the leaf mold, that humus that everybody's trying to mimic, that everybody's buying in these box stores. This compost, they call it, but it's the humus, that rich, dark soil you get under a pile of leaves that's been resting. That's what everybody's trying to mimic. That's
that earthy smell, that smells like it doesn't stink, but it smells like
great.
It smells like, have you ever been into a rumpus room or a basement where the earth down there, it's like a combination of earth and space?
Yeah.
And when it gets damp and wet down there, it has that earthy smell.
Yeah, I hear what like a rug that's been resting in a basement, maybe. It is kind of like that for sure. But it is, and it's amazing. The whole art of making soil. I wish we could teach it at a very young age to our children. Before we even teach history, let's teach them how to make soil, how to turn our organic waste into soil. I think that's going to be the saving grace in tomorrow's world.
And that's really kind of what brought us together, because you have this system and I have a nonprofit that's not being used, and it would go perfect in trying to educate kids and bringing your system, the vertical growing system with the buckets and everything else. So let's explain this system here that you've created. So it's a vertical growing system, but it's also mobile. So you could grow all year round. And let's say you had a house. Let's just use a house for an example, right? Because that's what most people that want to grow food maybe have a house. And you can't grow all year round because frost. If you live in an area that frost will damage your plants, kill your plants, you need to be able to move them outside and inside during that period. Also for schools, like if you were going to try and teach this is a perfect system to teach kids, and kids love to watch stuff grow. Having a child myself, I have a 4.5-year-old daughter who's almost 5, and she just did not want to eat vegetables. She didn't want to eat anything other than junk processed food. And one day last year, we decided, okay, well, let's grow a tomato plant just to see, She was in part of the process, the whole process. She planted it. She watched it grow. She watered it. And when we picked it, she wanted to try it. And now she eats tomatoes by herself and doesn't even, we'll go to the store and she'll grab a basket of tomatoes for herself. Because she's on my tomatoes, I want to eat these. So, I mean, it's just amazing to watch. I mean, kids are just little sponges, man, especially at that age. They're just so curious and they want to learn and they want to know how. Let me do it. I want to try. So, I mean, it's perfect.
It's funny. If you put a bunch of toddlers in a room, let's say kindergartners, in a room, you had a bunch of books on one side and you had a bunch of aquariums with maybe some stuff in it, whatever, soil, they're going to head towards the natural world every time. And they're going to be excited about it. That's kind of hands-on for that is kind of amazing. Children would love it. I think they'd grasp it very quickly. And it's important that they do so, because the way the establishments, these corporate entities are working now, it's all about money. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very hard for us to change our sanitation, who make a lot of money moving heavy weight around. That's their livelihood, right? Mm-hmm. And if we stop that, where would they go? So we're working against that kind of thing. Even sewers, when you think of sewers, same thing. There's a lot of money in sanitation, but if everybody realized that our outputs aren't as toxic as long as you handle them right. There are pathogens and stuff, but even our toxics, our outputs hold value, immense value. At least red wigglers love the heck out of our outputs. I don't want to go down that road, but it's important. It's a survival skill. When you think of campers who tote around all these chemicals, campers, boaters, mm-hmm. and I think to myself, there's a far better way that costs you nothing, that you can handle it just as cleanly, in my opinion, just as cleanly. It's just amazing. And when all is said and done, it looks exactly like that earthy smell we were talking about. It smells and feels just like that. Takes a little time.
And the wigglers, the red wigglers that you're talking about, those are basically the filtration system for this, right? They do all of the heavy labor in breaking down those pathogens and anything that's contained within that waste that could be toxic. They filter that out through their process and worm castings and everything else to make that now usable product. Correct?
Yeah, they're amazing. You're totally correct. And they're the oldest species in the world. Like this tower here in back of me here. This is a spider plant, but it's made out of all recycled material. And it's a living underground world in there. There's all kinds of worms in there. I water from the top. I get the water from the bottom. The water at the bottom is more nutrient rich because of the biodiversity that comes through here to be used on the next watering. So those in California who have a shortage in water, mm-hmm. It's a no-brainer in a lot of ways. And the concepts are the same, whether you're using a bucket, 55-gallon drum, or a pallets, or or fencing. There's so many ways to do it. The principles are all the same. You want to save your irrigation. You want to take full control over all aspects of your growing, the irrigation, the soil, and the plants. And that's something you constantly build upon. It's a part of it all.
I think that the fact that all of the materials that you gather for this vertical growing are all things that are thrown away.
Yeah,
they're all materials that you're keeping from going to the what do they call it? The
landfill,
the landfill.
Incinerators. It's ridiculous.
The pallets. Do you use the pallets to grow the base for your rolling, to put the rollers on and everything else, or do you use the pallets for building your composting, or do you use them for both?
Yeah, you could do it for both. It's so many ways. It's an exciting field that's going to be coming up, no doubt. Mobile gardens, in my opinion, I think, Sean, you heard it here first. Google online. If you find somebody that's working on mobile gardens, please send me the link, because I think I'm the only one doing it. I look forward to the day when I'm walking on a university or in an inner city and a whole tower of kale comes by me, heading to the farmer who's waiting, chatting in a coffee room. Oh, here comes the tower, and all they have to do is put one little thing in there, and they're done with it.
Yeah,
they water it, it comes out, and they send it back out into the sun again. That's the future of farming, in my opinion.
No, and it's great that it's completely recycled water that, you know what I mean, you can continue using that, and you just add as you need. I think that's probably one of the greatest things about it, because, you know, as far as, you know, we're at food shortage, but we're also looking at possible water shortages too, and not being as easy to get, just because of all of the different climate things that are going on. Now, I'm not going to say that, you know, get into the whole climate change thing, you know what I mean? But the climate is always changing, you know, as the earth is moving and tilting on its axis, you know, the where it was cold last year, you know, if we had a shift, it's probably going to be not as cold there, or colder in a different region. You know, that's just kind of the way that it's worked out, you know, for millions of years, at least the ones that we've been following and cataloging, right?
Yeah, right.
You know, and then the core sampling and everything else, you know, we know that there are times and situations, and, you know, you can get into Carl, the guy that talks about all the cataclysmic events. I can't remember.
Carl Sagan?
And I don't know if it's Carl Sagan. He was been on what's his name? Joe Rogan's podcast, and I mean he's fascinating to listen to, with all the different things that have happened, from the Younger Dryas era to the Great Floods to all these different, you know, cataclysmic events that have happened in our history. You know, just things happen. You know, this we're not as stable as we think we are. You know what I mean? It's just because we haven't had, you know, some of these huge events, but I mean, we're constantly being missed by asteroids every day. I mean, if you go and look at the catalog of near misses on NASA, or where they keep the information at, and I've listened to somebody go through on them, and I'm like, and give dates, and I'm like, oh my God, that happens that often? So, I mean, you know, who knows? You know,
yeah, we're not on a Disney ride, that's for sure. Like many people think we're on a Disney ride and they expect the government to handle every need. One day, a catastrophe like you're talking about could happen. And if it happens, you've got to have the basic survival skills, which I think comes from making soil myself. Mm-hmm. I think it solves a lot of the world problems. You know, Elon Musk has this challenge. It's an X challenge, where he's trying to create this machine that is a carbon sequestering machine. And he's got this contest, $100 million if you win it. I'm in the contest. I'm the only one on it. I just signed it in just to see what would happen. But my solution would be, it's not going to be one machine. It's going to take all of us to live differently, learning how to work with nature rather than looking for this amazing machine that somebody has a patent on that, you got to buy. I think it's going to take all of us to start thinking outside the box. And with today's technology, we have more tools at our disposal than we ever did before. And that's exciting for me. And it's a learning curve, don't get me wrong. It looks so simple. You know, you got this tower here that's all put together. This particular tower it's a spider plant, and I guess you can eat spider plants, but it's in this house. There's a ton of them in here. I got another one in the other one where this one came from. It's purifying the air in here. If you Google spider plants, I wish it was kale. That would be a better example. It's something you could really eat, but supposedly you can eat these. I've never tried it, but I've heard you can. But I could put a lot of my compost in this tower alone. My house compost that I would normally throw away, I could feed to this tower here.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's kind of cool.
So what is it? So, I mean, at some point, because I've run this by my vice president of my nonprofit, and she's definitely, because she's involved with another nonprofit that she's the director of, and it's she's definitely interested in it, and we want to get the schematics from you of how to build this so we can do a proof of concept. That way we can roll it out and actually start working with it and seeing what it's, how we can bring this out in an education sort of platform for schools. Because she deals with a lot of inner city, underprivileged families and folks like that. And within her nonprofit, so it would be interesting to sort of roll out a proof of concept to see, just like anything else, just like growing or anything that you're going to do, having some hands-on experience in what is it going to take to put this together. That way, when if you're buying into something, it's as you're investing your time and your skills into it and you're putting this together, you see how easy it is. It's a lot easier for you to become an advocate once you know for yourself how easy or difficult something is going to be.
Yeah, totally. And I'm almost at that stage, I would imagine. I've got way more than my 10,000 hours. And I've got way more. I've got so many contraptions because I was fascinated with soilless growing way back in the day. The hydroponics and the aeroponics, I was so fascinated. I made all kinds of different tools. And then I realized, I'm still tied into a corporate entity when you're thinking of the liquid fertilizers you have to use, the water that has to continuously run through it. This plant right here can literally go 2 months, this whole tower, without having to water the way it's designed, which is kind of amazing. But yet it still has the same positives that the soilless growers have, which is save your irrigation. I contend this even loses less irrigation than the hydroponics and aeroponics because it's contained, it's not constantly moving or evaporating type thing.
Yeah, you don't have evaporation, which you would normally do in an open air sort of soil system. And you're right with the hydroponics, because all those nutrients have to come from some sort of a source where the fertilizer is made with chemicals.
They're right back to where commercial farming is at, where they're looking for, like you talk about Russia that has control over all that. They're right back where they are. It's not sustainable, it's not a closed loop system when you have to depend on somebody else for your nutrients. And and a lot of the people who sell these systems that do indeed work, don't get me wrong, they work well. I follow a lot of people who do great jobs with hydroponics and aeroponics. But I think to myself, what inner city kid is going to have an extension cord to plug in? You know what I mean? It's just not practical in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's not accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
Versus this is more accessible to people because, I mean, how hard is it for you to go and gather 5 buckets? You know what I mean? And like, how much would you say to tool this system that you have here? And you have a bunch of different ones. Like you can turn that into a 2-bucket stack system, a 3-bucket stack system on a roller, or a single, right? What you got there is a single stack system. Yeah.
And again, like 4 pallets, a screened in area you'd still be able to save the irrigation in it. You have more girth, more space. Granted, it takes more soil to put there, but you won't have you can get out of the plastic. If people are opposed to plastics, there's many ways to do it where you can find old fencing. Like I have some towers. If you go onto my Instagram and my Facebook, in YouTube where I share all this information freely, do-it-yourself information on there. It shows the different ones I'm working with this year, and it gives a lot of good examples of ones that have worked in previous years. So
green screen malfunction. Hold on a second.
Get the crew in there, Sean. Get that prop crew. Who we firing for that, for crying out loud? Can't believe that.
God, my dog. I'm gonna fire my dog. It's all your fault, Riley.
Well, that looks good that you have it like that. I really thought it was your logo in back of you, like a flag of some kind.
Well, it is, but it's just it's on the green screen. I share my studio with my daughter, so just picture a room cut up in 4 quarters, right? I got a quarter and she's got 3 quarters, so I've managed to stick my little podcast studio in the corner and share it with her. She's not happy about it when she's trying to hang out in her room and I'm trying to do something, but for the most part, she's cool about it. And I mean, that's what it is these days, man. Sometimes you have, and some of the craziest thing is 2020 made everything not, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, not professional is okay now, right?
Yeah.
Because you saw so many people on Zoom, like news people, like mainstream news people were all on Zoom, and they're all having these technical difficulties, and they're all trying to figure out how to work with this new sort of technology that's allowing us to not have to be on location as much. And you're watching them go through these growing pains, and it really made it better for us, because now people start realizing, oh, well, they're not that perfect.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? And so, well, then if I'm willing to watch them not be perfect, well, let me venture out and check out some other stuff, because it's just real. I mean, that's just kind of like, I don't know, man. I tend to think that unpolished and just attainable to me is more consumable now than the shiny, polished object that mainstream media would always put out there. It's like, once you realize that a lot of the stuff that they're saying isn't really what's going on, and I'm just gonna leave it at that, because we don't want to turn this into
there, man. Yeah, right.
We don't want to turn this into we don't want to turn this into a conspiracy or truther kind of podcast, but
right.
I mean, all you have to do is just be paying just a little bit of attention to see that something's not right.
Yeah, something's not right. I don't know. Have you been following the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist movement?
I remember watching the first and the second Zeitgeist.
Yeah,
but I never really got in too much into it.
Oh my God, I got crazy with. I went to Jacques Fresco and Roxanne, the Venus Project, a few times. I went down there. I have a great interview with Jacques Fresco. I love their positivity towards the future of our planet. If we could just get it right, if we could just work together rather than against. Mm-hmm. We're always working against nature to make the almighty dollar. And I think we can do it. It's going to take all of us. But I totally hear what you're saying with the news. I go over to my in-laws' house and I hear their news is going on, and I'm like, oh my God. And then you go to Clubhouse and you have real people who are all over the world. Mm-hmm. That's kind of amazing, right? You get all these people who are all over the world that are telling you their story.
Or actually, it's such an easy way to be able to go, okay, this is what I'm hearing coming out of this area. Let me go onto Clubhouse and let me see if I can find a room that has people in that area that live in that area. And I mean, it's really easy. I mean, to go and find that and try to spark up a conversation with someone that's living there and ask them, hey, what are you seeing? I mean, it's really, you're cutting out the opportunity to be lied to. Really, what it is, and maybe it's not a malicious lie to not in their eyes, but a lie is a lie. if you're not letting me know the truth about what's happening around the world, and you're twisting it to fit your narrative, or to maybe not have people, I don't know, panic or whatnot. I mean, I think that's a crime too, because you should be able to give people the option to know what's going on so they can prepare. If you're not allowing them to prepare, then it seems like you're maliciously doing something to harm people.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're not prepared, so let's just say, let's use this as an example. So, you know, we're having some issues with Russia and the United States. We're kind of in a war, but kind of not. You know what I mean? It's like we're supporting and giving weapons to Ukraine, and I don't want to say, you know, that they're right or they're wrong or whatever, but this is just like, you're observing, right? We're just observing. I'm not taking any sides. I just doesn't make sense that. So we're technically not in a war, but we're helping fund one. Okay, that doesn't make sense. So obviously Russia knows this, and they're going to get pissed off. And let's just say they do a cyber attack on our grid. They're constantly telling us how insecure our grid is, right? Every time you hear something about our grid, how vulnerable it is and how easy to attack it is, and all of this other stuff, you know, basically telling, you know, everybody like, hey, this is a good opportunity. Go ahead and do it. So let's just say it happens. All right. I've heard estimates of 5 days is all it would take for the power grid to go down and everybody to be dark, for people to start killing each other and going hungry.
Yeah, I bet.
You know, and this is just in big cities,
You
like
can hear
urban
that on
cities.
Clubhouse. You can hear that on Clubhouse. People talking in language when you're in a certain room. You hear people talking in a language where they know what they're going to be doing. If something like that, and you're not privy to it. You're not privy to what they're talking about. They use which, you know, that's what they're going to do. They're going to group together, and 5 days. I bet that's a good estimate on all that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not going to have, you know, if you don't have a generator, you can't run it to keep your ice box cool. And I think 4 hours a day is what you need to run it, at least to keep it cold and frozen, and what you need to do. And you can only open your refrigerator maybe a couple times a day for the specific meals that you're going to need. You open it and then you close it. There's no opening, staring at it, going, God, did anything come? I just looked at this 20 minutes ago. Does anything come back? Does anything appear? You know, like people do. You know, it's not going to take very long. And you're going to have to figure out who you're going to partner up with, because you can't do it alone. You're going to need, and if you have these items like a generator, you know, generators are really loud. If your neighbors down the road are starving and they hear your generator going, what's going to happen? You know, people you're going to be a magnet to the have-nots, right?
Yep.
I'm starving. I'm going to come and try to take what you've got. So if you don't have a way to protect yourself, firearms, whatever it is, you know, protection, you could become a victim yourself. So, I mean, it could get very ugly very fast if you were not prepared.
Yep.
And, you know,
and I think in the long run, we're better off sharing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
You know, and that's not easy to do, especially when you got these preppers who have been prepping for a long time. They've been knowing something like this is going to happen in their minds, and they're going to be protecting their stuff they've been working so hard to prep for, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. And the attitude out there is going to be, we've been warning you about this for years, and now you finally have woken up and decided, oh my God, this is a problem, and you're not prepared. So what are the other people that have prepared for themselves supposed to do?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because when it comes to survival, it's me, my family, and mine first. And if there's anything left over, then okay, you know, but that's by, you know, preference of the people that you want to help.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah, you know, so I mean, getting ahead of this and having a plan, right? Yeah. whether it's, you know, and you don't even have to prep super seriously. You just have to have a plan. You know what I mean?
You got to know how to make soil. I tell you that you have to know how to make soil.
You know what I mean? Go get seeds. Those are going to be come very, very tradable. You know, make sure they're heirloom seeds, and they're seeds that are not from Monsanto that won't allow those seeds to reproduce that you grow.
Yeah.
You know, there's just a lot of things that we're going to have to start looking at, and hopefully it just never happens, right? And hopefully,
you know what? Here's the deal, Sean. I think it's bound to happen because we can't keep doing what we're doing. We can't keep gobbling up resources all over the world to make stupid stuff. A lot of stuff that comes our way. You think of the Dollar Tree, the dollar store. You think of all the stuff. You go in there and you look at all. If you think of the little stupid plastic thing you get, whatever it is, and the energy it took to get to that store from China, these big boxes, it's like not even worth the value of whatever the heck it costs you for that dollar thing.
Yeah.
And so all those resources to get this one silly thing to you, we have to get smart about it. And that's why I kind of brought up the Venus Project and the Zeitgeist Movement, because at least they have some kind of a plan I feel we can build upon. And again, we can't stop. We got to stop throwing our organics, especially to the landfill. That's our biodiversity lost in our commercial growing. We get our food, and we throw it in the trash can. It goes right to the incinerator. Whereas in my house, I got a big old bucket here where nothing gets thrown away. If it's organic, it does not leave our house. And then 8 weeks, I have it into nice black worm castings, which is more valuable than compost, which is kind of amazing to me. So the red wiggler is easy to master. They're free, especially if you live around. I know where you in California.
Yeah,
they might be around the ground where you are. Some parts of California, Northern California, maybe.
Now, here's the thing: when you're composting and you've got all of this stuff in your pile, does that, and let's say it's in the dirt, does it attract worms if it's because I know I was reading about composting. They said when you first start your pile, don't use like garlic or any kind of onions or anything, because it keeps the worms in the beginning from coming, because when you're first beginning, you don't have all that good stuff going on, right?
Yeah, right.
And so they say to hold back that kind of stuff until once you get your compost full of organisms and stuff that'll break down, and the worms have already come. Once the worms have gotten there, then it's okay, because once they're there, they're not going to go away.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's definitely a good point. When you're starting out, it's probably a good idea. I feed them everything myself. And I have a shredder, so I mince all my paper and cardboard up, and I chop all my food up, because the more surface area you expose on your organic matter, the faster it breaks down. You know, worms have little mouths, and you want to have more surface area for the biodiversity to get all around it, right?
Okay.
So you chop your food. I chop my food scraps up in a bucket with a flat-ended spade or a flat pick or whatever. I chop it up as fine as I can. I add my carbon, which is my newspaper, and my cardboard, and I just mix it up. I make it into a ball. I call it a bio ball. I put it in newspaper, a composting roll. You bury these rolls in your planters with a few worms. Even if you have to buy a pound of worms, and you know how to take care of them, that worm colony will grow for you. And once you master the red, you've mastered how to grow food for yourself. That's a guarantee.
Now, another thing that people don't really understand or not educated about is if you have healthy soil, you don't have any of the fungus or any of the negative stuff that comes in with healthy soil, because the microbes and everything that are brought in by what you're talking about, all the worms and the castings and all of this stuff that go into making a perfect habitable soil, none of that stuff survives in it, right?
Yeah, it's yeah, it seems like wood chips is another good one. If you're going to grow horizontally, is another good way to just keep the these biodiversity, so you don't need as many pesticides. I think you're getting at.
Yeah.
You know, you know what I mean? Like our commercial growing practices, all the biodiversity is being raked from the soil, so they have to add these herbicides because these biodiversity isn't there to fight the battle of whatever it's all. I'm not that. You have to go to Elaine Ingram for soil.
But it's bacteria is just like people have bacteria. We got good bacteria and bad bacteria.
Right.
And so the soil, most of the soils that are out there right now have been so depleted of anything that none of those bacterias are available in that dirt. And so you have to cultivate those bacterias and bring that soil or dirt back to a healthy living way of being. Is that
and that's why growing vertically is the key on that one, because you can put it all in one spot. You don't have to spread it out over. You can put it in one place where you can leave it all, and go build upon it. And it can a composting bin, a finished composting bin. If you poke some plants in it, they will grow, and you'll have enough moisture in there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of. And that's the circle of life that we haven't been doing.
No.
And one day, I have no doubt, especially in California, you're going to be driving by and you're going to see all these towers. And that's where hopefully all this city organic waste is going to go for these farmers to start knowing, because you guys have a shortage of water out there and nobody's even thinking about it.
The problem is that it's opposite of what you would think. So you would think that Northern California would be the drier part of California, but that's not true because of the elevation. Everything moves to the north, and we have to ship water to the south. And so that's really, a lot of our water goes down. You have that huge aqueduct that goes right through Northern California and down through Central California, and in the growing, the ag belt down there from it's pretty much from like Sacramento all the way down to like Bakersfield is this corridor of growing along the 5, or it's in between Highway 5 and Highway 99. In the middle of that is the Central Valley where most of California's food or vegetables and stuff come from. And they're having to I read an article where they're having to reduce their growing space because of water and the lack of water that they're getting and the amount of money that it's starting to cost. They're cutting back in growing acreage is where they're cutting their costs. And so cutting back growing acreage means less food.
Mm-hmm.
And this is happening everywhere. And, a lot of I cannot stress, if you're listening to this and you're tuning in, do yourself a favor, start going on and looking at the different things that are happening that we've discussed. Look at what Ukraine puts out. Look at what was a good source that I get my information from is Ice Age Farmer on Telegram. Have you heard of him?
I don't think I've heard of him. I haven't heard of him.
No, you can go. You can also go to iceagefarmer.com. Let me make sure of that. And everything that's going on that has to do with growing, and he's on iceagefarmer.com as well. And he talks about food abundance, all of that stuff. And he covers a lot of things, like when there's been a lot of fertilizer factories that have gone up in flames and have burned down. I don't know if it has anything to do, with conspiracy kind of stuff. But I mean, every time something like that happens, this guy is on it, and it's on his Telegram channel. It's on his website. So Ice Age Farmer.
I see him here.
Start following this guy because he's got really good information when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, they say we're going to have to start growing a different way anyway. Let's say all this global warming isn't real. We're still on a planet that stuff can happen.
Mm-hmm.
and we should be living accordingly. And we haven't been for a long time. And the main reason is because we've been relying, in my opinion, we've been relying on other people to do our stuff for us. We can't even do anything. Everything, we don't even know how to grow a plant. Many people are like, wow, that's how you do it. And it's something we all should learn. It should be something we all know as a society, how to at least make soil, because that would greatly reduce our landfills. And if we put pressure on these corporate entities who put all this stupid packing, the plastics that they pack stuff with, the plastic silverware, which anything you can think of that's plastic, you could make out of something that's biodegradable. And on our end, we can compost it. And, I think of Andrew Yang when he was running for president. He talked about this universal income. Well, don't give me universal income. We earn it by composting our end, and we're saving society money by not having you have our dump trucks come for us. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's going to be important in the very near future because technological unemployment is a reality. People are losing their jobs left and right. People in California are feeling it more than anybody because you look at the homeless. The homeless are going there because it's a great place to be homeless. It's nice and warm in California.
Well, we also have Silicon Valley, which a lot of these technological advances are coming out of. Especially one of them, and I followed this probably about 2 years ago is when I first heard about it, but the whole making long haul truckers obsolete by using AI and also self-driving vehicles for the highway portion of driving, and then they pull off before they go into the city, and then a human would take over from that point, just because it's really difficult to get a big vehicle like that to make turns, and you know what I mean? There's no way that a program is going to know how to do a wide turn. You know what I mean? Because they can't look out the side view mirror to see if you're going to clip the pole, yeah, right, or something. You know what I mean? When you're driving something that big. So I mean, they figured out a way to take the bulk of that problem away from people. And so, I mean, and they're figuring out different ways of doing all kinds of different stuff in this area. But for some reason, they just haven't figured out how to fix the homeless situation. But we can do all kinds of other stuff. And it's the whole model of profits over people that we're seeing. I mean, that's the whole reason why there's such a huge gap in wealth and inequality, why the 1% has more money than the 90%. The 1% put together has more money than the whole 90% put together. That's a problem.
And these corporate entities, they to keep their competitive edge, they have to use robotics too, because even if they wanted to be good Samaritans and hire people, they're going to eventually fall to the wayside because the people who use the corporations that use robots are going to have the competitive edge. A robot works 24/7. You don't have to give it life insurance. You don't have to feed it. There's no lunch breaks. They work overtime with no complaining. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do.
And it's
robotics is only getting better too. So in all right, so here's a little story for you. So I would say when I was 18 years old, so I'm 48 now, so over 25 years ago, I got locked up. I got in trouble and got locked up in a place called, it's a county facility. I can't remember. Alameda County Detention Center. And they were already using robot technology when they would send the dinner meals out of the kitchen. It would follow a line, and it would go and each one was programmed to go to a certain dorm, and it would stop in front of that dorm. They would come and get it. When they were done, they would put it out and they would go right back. So it took away, you didn't have to have inmates pushing these carts and then also having a guard along with them. So, I mean, it freed up, the guard's time, and it made it more secure. So that was 25 years ago. And, wow. And that's pretty good technology. Yeah, right? Totally. And so now it just gets better and it gets more improved, and the more data that they're getting from everybody. I mean, all of this stuff, that's why it's so important to kind of get a hold of, and we haven't been able to because our data has just been being mined from us at an alarming rate, to where most of these social media companies and these people that gather your data know you better than you know yourself.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's scary.
That's crazy.
It's scary. They know what your next move is going to be before you do.
Yeah.
Based on your habits and everything that you do, because we're all habitual creatures. We all figure out how to do something the most efficient way or the easiest way, and then that's our go-to. That's our auto response. We have an auto response for everything that we do. Mm-hmm. That's why we're so much like computers, and they've been trying to figure out how to make computers more like us because of how we do things. And it's not always best for us when that comes to be, because we don't want to become obsolete.
No, I don't think we'll ever become obsolete, truthfully. Especially, there's always going to be, and I want to mechanize urban farming jobs. I want a world where you don't have to do that kind of the silly jobs, the mundane jobs that don't pay anything anyway, never pay the bills, and that's all. That's what the robots are going to be doing. So then where does the person who doesn't go to college, where are they going to go to get a good life when there's no work out there? I think urban farming jobs will pick up that work.
I think that it could be possible too, but you just got to find something that can give people enough to be satisfied with what they're doing, enough satisfied with what they're making, to where they don't need a whole lot.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And that's not that expensive. I mean, I think, when you shrink down, like Google, I just worked on one of their newer campuses, and they added to this campus living quarters. So there's, on one of these buildings, had 6 floors, 16 units per floor. And they were literally, there was a bed, a place to sit, and it wasn't even that comfortable of a couch, a TV, bathroom, and the sink wasn't even in the bathroom. The sink was outside of the bathroom, and the bathroom just had a toilet and a shower. I mean, literally, you're talking maybe 200 square feet per, and that's literally all you need. I was starting to think about it. I'm like, if I was a single person, and Google, their campuses, they feed their employees. So a lot of these tech companies, they have huge kitchens in them where they feed you. Your entertainment's there, your food is there. They do everything they can to keep your ass there working. So I mean, literally, you have no needs, and especially if you were working at this campus, you don't have to worry about food. You don't have to worry about anything other than staying there. So, I mean, it makes total sense. And
you're excited about working, right? It sounds like they're excited about working. And the campus, you're only there to sleep anyway, for the most part, maybe clean up and go back out there again.
Yep.
So if the campus grounds are exciting, then I guess maybe that's the new, I don't think that's that bad. I mean, when you're having a family or something like that, might be a little bit of a problem, but for a young kid, I bet they'd love it.
Yeah, and I think
that's all they want to do anyway. That's all my kids want to do is look on their iPhone all day. And I'm getting like that as well. I'm happy with an iPad and an iPhone. And if I can go on a bike ride or a hike like that, what more is there?
Yeah.
What more do you need?
No, I get it. And, even in my own life, I'm starting to see all these things that I have, which, they're things that you have, but those things often come with maintenance, with monthly payments, with insurance, and all of this other stuff. So it's like, okay, I mean, maybe this isn't the way. Maybe this mindless consumption is just a distraction from how we should be being.
Totally.
You know what I mean? That's not the way we should be being, because that comes with a lot of times excess and waste.
Yeah.
That's never accounted for and just lost.
I mean, you think of my little small town, my little small street here. Everybody's got a lawnmower. Everybody's got a wood chipper. Everybody's got multiple things. Imagine if we just had one shed, we could go in, sign it out, or Mark's going to mow his lawn at this time, like a library. And things are made to last instead of planned obsolescence where they're made to break down in a couple of years.
Oh,
You could make a lawnmower that could last forever, truthfully.
Well, you could make a car or add something to a car where you can get 500 miles to a gallon, you know what I mean, of hydrogen conversion. Yeah. There's tons of ways that you can add things to get away from the profits of others. That's really what we've been trapped into. We've been trapped into a system where we've been told how things should be and not necessarily given the right information as to, like, we don't have manuals, right? People don't come with a manual, and we need a manual because there's things that we go through as humans that we don't understand. You know what I mean? We don't understand our emotions sometimes. We don't understand projection and how that works, how we project. A lot of the times we project our own bullshit onto everybody else around us until we learn how to control our own bullshit. And that, maybe I shouldn't be projecting how I feel about something onto somebody else. And you know what I mean? It's just so complex to be a person that we're not taught a lot of stuff. And especially in the financial world, we're not taught about compound interest, at least, totally. and how to be on the right side of it. Because most of us, if you don't know about it, you end up on the wrong side of it.
Yeah,
where it benefits somebody else and not you. Yeah, it benefits them and not you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's always been odd that we as a government has to borrow from the Federal Reserve. That was always strange.
Yeah.
We're borrowing from a separate entity. Here we're the greatest nation supposedly in the world, and we're borrowing from something. It reminds me, I don't know if you watched the Game of Thrones where, they had to borrow from some money country that you never really heard too much about, but they were always in control, that 1% who has the pulse of everything,
Yeah, the Khazarians come to mind, but that's a whole nother topic. It's just it's crazy. Everything has been inverted, and what we think is usually isn't. And whenever something is being rammed down your throat so hard, if you're not going to do anything else, just make a mental note and look at the opposite of what they're trying to convince you of. And you're going to find that the opposite is more true than what they're trying to tell you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, because if you want to hear more conspiracy shit, check out some of the other episodes that I have, and you can hear me talk about a lot of that crazier stuff.
I'm good. I follow you on YouTube now.
Oh, well, cool. I've been following you, so... we're a little bit over an hour, so I know I don't want to take up any more of your time. It's you're on the East Coast, so it's about 9:00 where you're at right now, right?
Yeah.
So any
9:01.
Yeah, any last things that you want to talk about that you didn't get a chance to? Because I know that I spoke a little bit, but I'm trying to sort of direct this conversation. But I haven't had to do a whole lot of that on this, so thank you. I appreciate that. You've got a lot of information, and I definitely am looking forward to building one of these things and working this out with you, as we talked about, in trying to bring this as an educational platform, to schools in my area, as well as, any other way that I can help sort of propagate this system, because I do think it's going to be important. And I think that we're going to be more self-reliant coming further down in the future. Maybe not for everybody, but I think that it's going to be a trend that grows.
Yeah, I think so too. My slogan these days is get mad, make soil, because we, the people, really have a lot of the solutions right the way we live. It's a learning curve. And when you start saving your organics, you feel good about it. It's amazing. I got my wife in it, my kids even. Everything goes into this bucket here by the sink, even in my in-laws' place over here. And they know that nothing is off limits. And they don't know where I take it after that. They always say, what happens if something happens to you? What am I going to do with it? And that's where the work does come in. So I don't want to make it look like it's so easy, all your organics into soil, because there is a learning curve. But you feel good about it because it's not leaving the house. and then we're growing food. Even if you don't grow food, I could throw it on my lawn with great results. You don't have to be a farmer to save your organics. And I think this particular system, especially in California, I think California is screaming for it. Just for the irrigation aspect, at least Southern California for the most part, for the irrigation factor. Why lose your irrigation when you don't have to?
Well,
why not take full? Oh, go ahead.
No. Go for it.
I was saying, why not take full control? In a sense, it's container growing. Mm-hmm. Whether you put it in four-sided pallets or a cylinder, which I have my last YouTube is all about just a dog crate. I turned a grow tower into a dog crate, the dog crate into a grow tower. And that's something that nothing can get into. Like if I put a composting roll or a composting ball in there, no animal can get, no rat or anything can even get in it,
Yeah.
Not that they would anyway if you set it up right. If you set your compost up right, you should never have anything. There should be no smells, and there should be nothing that really wants to get at it. So
there, one last question, because as you were talking about that, it sparked one that I'd forgotten about, and it has to do with plastic and leaching, plastic leaching into stuff. So is that a concern, or is it part of the microbial stuff that deals with that too?
Yeah, plastic. A lot of, like these buckets are plastic, of course. 55-gallon drums are plastic. They're food grade. The same as any hydroponics and aeroponics system is all about plastic, right?
Yeah.
Their whole systems are plastic. You don't have to use plastic. If plastic bothers you, you can use, again, fencing or pallets. You don't have to use. If you want to stay, for myself, my water here where I live, tastes just like chlorine. I drink it. I take the chance. That it's an issue for sure, Sean, when you're talking about
glyphosates and stuff that leach from plastic. I mean, but I would think that it's not as detrimental as, let's just say, the leaching of plastic and glyphosates from water bottles, because water bottles are more, they're, you don't know from birth to you don't know where they've been, right? You don't know if it's been sitting out on a pallet in the sun for 3 days before you got it, which helps the leaching process, right? Before it gets to the cooler store. So this is a little bit different, because you're probably going to have, if it's out in the sun, you're going to be...
It's out in the sun. First of all, I go with buckets because I had a ton of them. And I thought, who's throwing away a bucket? What can I do with a bucket? Again, if I was somebody like yourself who's starting out, just a ring, a chicken wire ring. And again, I have some videos on how I turn that into the same thing this does, where you're not losing the irrigation. You're taking full control over your soil. You don't have to use buckets or 55-gallon drums. And even if you wanted to go the mobile route, you don't have to use plastic. There's ways to avoid plastic if that's a concern for people. And it's a good, you're right on about that. With plastic, it could leach into your plants. Do the roots take the plastic up? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I would. Right? I mean, if they're able to kill pathogens out of organic material and turn what would normally cause, what did everybody was dying, the Black Plague and cholera and all that stuff because of human waste, in the streets and gathering. I mean, if it can knock that out, maybe it does something with the glyphosates.
Because that's a good point, because the science is there where vermiculture, worm farming, greatly reduces pathogens. I got a great book right on a PDF, like hot composting. Mm-hmm. Vermiculture kills pathogens, and that's good news for people who live in the city and don't have room for hot composting bins. You definitely have room for a worm farm, a little, a worm bin to break down your organics. So that's kind of cool. And even cold composting, believe it or not, if you leave it long enough, the bad pathogens get eaten up by the good microbes. That's what this book says, and it's I don't have it. It's on my iPad. I have to look at it, but I have on my YouTube and Facebook shows. This college-educated people that have tested it. I wish they'd do more testing though, because it's It's important. Let's stop making plastic for that stuff. Throw away bottles and stuff like that. Why can't we stop that?
No, I agree. And, we just, there are ways, but I mean, like I said, everything has a profit model to it. So
right. That's the deal.
It makes it difficult. And even, I mean, you even see the homeless problem and like this could have been solved a long time ago, but if you solve the homeless problem, then you're putting how many people that out of work, you know what I mean? That work in the homeless situation. So it's like, I don't know, man. It's almost like it's kind of like, to me, it's like it's like cancer, right? How much money is made off of cancer research and all of this stuff? How many people get employed off of researching cancer? Well, if they gave you the cure, then there wouldn't be a need for all of this huge, industry that revolves around that sickness.
I believe there's a lot of truth in that. I believe that's why we're not getting rid of it all. And that's why investors don't want to invest in free energy, because they don't have there's no capital to be gained from it. Their long-term investment isn't there in free stuff, and that's too bad. And we're going to have to figure that one out before we start going out into space and trashing that out, I think.
Yeah, we're already trashing space. How much junk do we got orbiting around our system that we've thrown up there from, how many of Elon Musk's new satellites just came down because of that coronal flare, right? That happened. I think it knocked out like 40 something of his satellites that he brought up for the Starlink that he was, the internet system. So, I mean, you're right. There's no reason for us to be even thinking about moving off to Mars unless there's a reason that they're not telling us that they're needing to get off this planet for whatever reason. That's the only reason that I can think of, because we have thousands of millions of miles under the water that we don't even know about on this planet.
Yeah, totally. And we could be living. Why isn't somebody figuring that out? Living under there before you go out to Mars or whatever. I'd rather live underwater than take my chances on Mars.
Right.
Personally.
Yeah, me too. I mean, shit, you don't have to worry about tidal waves underwater. Just current. And if you're deep enough, you don't have to worry about that. So, definitely a lot to chew on in this one.
Yeah, totally. I'm loving the preservation of the human race in Clubhouse, though, and you guys that are on there. I love listening to you guys while I'm out working in the
Michael's a good guy, man. He's got a lot of information. He's been plugged into this, and the preservation of the human race, what we're talking about, is a club that's on Clubhouse. And if you're on Clubhouse, just type in preservation of the human race and join that club, and you'll be notified whenever they have rooms. They usually have a room every day, but it's not, it's everything encompassing on preservation of the human race, of preserving the human race, from growing food to prepping to, data dumps from, Pfizer and going through those and talking about them, and the just conversations and things are being talked about there that the mainstream media is staying very far away from for whatever reason.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I don't know either.
So if you have a chance, get on over there. Evegrowing you can find on YouTube, and all this information that he gives is free to you to try and to try to do this thing on your own if you want. Check out his YouTube channel. Also, he's on Facebook under Evegrowing as well, correct?
Yes. Yeah, and Google Evegrowing. Start all my videos. If you do Evegrowing, you'll see a video. I post in the information section all my links. I have a lot of closed Facebook groups where all are welcome, where I open source certain ideas that I'm working on. And they're dedicated to, whether it's hot composting, because I contend that hot composting, that heat there is amazing. We could heat even an outside animal or whatever. But yeah, go to my YouTube channel, and there I have links on the different stuff I'm working on.
Awesome, man. And then you stay following this, because I want to partner up with Mark and bring this to schools and educate kids on how to do this, because I've seen it firsthand myself, and how my own child responds to learning how to grow food. And I think that's just an inherent, I think that's something that's hardwired within our DNA. That, from years of being ingrained in us from what we were doing, that particular information is still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. It's just waiting to be woken up.
Yeah, that's a good point, Sean. I love it.
So thank you, Mark. I want to thank you again for giving your time and hanging out with me and explaining your vertical growing concepts to the listeners and to the audience. And hopefully they got as much out of it as I did. And there's going to be more to come from this. Definitely. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thank you, Sean, for inviting me.
Yeah. No worries. Catch Mark on evegrowing on YouTube, and then also evegrowing on Facebook, which we already said. And hang out for just a second. I want to talk to you, but we're going to go ahead and close this out. Keep it 100. Stay true to yourself. Everything else is just noise. And we can end that. All right, we're ended. So good job, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That's fun. It's my first podcast.
Oh, awesome. Well, hopefully it won't be your last one. Hopefully we can get you on here some more. So, like I said, my vice president wants to make one of these things to see, how we can figure out and sort of what the cost price point in making a simple version would be. That way we know, when we start putting together for donations, how much we're going to be looking at needing for what we're trying to do. Also too, whenever you do decide that you want to come out here to California and we get further along in this, I do have somewhere for you to stay if you ever travel out this way. I have a fifth wheel, the nice one. It's actually nicer than where I live, which is outside connected up at my place. So there'll be a place for you to stay if you need somewhere when you do decide to come out this way.
Listen, this is the end of end of May, April. I mean, I could come. I tell you, it'd probably be worth the while to come and build you a couple. I mean, what is she looking for? Are he looking for? Are they looking for?
Well, I think before that happens, we'll get on. The first part of it was to do the podcast. That way, she could see the information. She could hear the questions that I asked. And then from that point on, it's just going to be us three meeting and talking about it. Like, hey, how can we make this happen? And she'll give her perspectives on where she's at and what she's dealing with, because she's already in it, right? She works for a nonprofit. They're already getting funding for. She got funding for a podcast as well, and so this can kind of work into it. And this is like sort of the ground level of this, and then once we can kind of get this thing, a concept working, then we can switch it over to mine, which will be specifically geared for. And then at that point, you would be brought on as a board member, so you can see everything that's going on, any finances that come through. You're a part of it. You know what I mean? There's no. It's transparent, is what I'm trying to say.
And I got some videos I'll be working on. I have it in the works now that I'll show on YouTube that I'll send you when they're done, just to give you an idea. Very simple to make. It's all anybody can do it. That's the beauty about it. And it's all about stuff that's all around us in urban settings. That's the amazing thing. The hard part, I guess, is making the soil, bringing the organics together and figuring out the soil. But
do you know how much cardboard I have access to that I throw away on a daily basis at work? Like big cardboard, like cardboard that has
with no tape. No tape on it.
Well, no, it has tape, but it's very little. When you peel the tape, when you peel the tape off of it, the paper comes with it.
Oh my God, I'd be bringing that home.
And they're big boxes too. It's thick cardboard, and it's used for insulation, pipe covering insulation. Nice. And so some days, I mean, these are boxes that are 4 by 3, so 4 feet tall, 3 feet wide. And they're, we literally I've just threw away maybe 30 pounds of it on last Friday.
Yeah, it's a great I tell you, get a shredder. I don't know if you have a cat, but minced cardboard is a great kitty litter. My cat uses it as a kitty litter.
I have a dog. No cats.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's. I think I'm going to start doing that. Taking my truck in, like if I'm working on a job, just stacking that cardboard, and then on a Friday bringing my truck and load it up.
Yeah, get a first of all, that's great just laying down in your yard. That's like putting wood chips down, Sean, cardboard is like laying wood chips down. I know you could probably get your hands on wood chips too, but you mince it up. That's a great carbon, man. Get yourself get the highest shredder you can get, like a 20 sheet. Mine's an 18 sheet, but I think they make a 20 sheet shredder, micro shredder.
All right. Hey, I gotta go to the bathroom. This coffee is running through me.
All right, Sean.
So I will be in touch, and like I said, I just gave you the plan of what I'm gonna do. So
sounds good.
So we'll definitely get together. All right.
All right. Great talk. Thank you.
All right, Mark.
Over now.
All right, bye.
You've been listening to the Nowhere to Go But Up podcast. Sean is a single dad, a union blue-collar guy, and he spent time in federal and state prison for drug trafficking and fraud. When he was released from prison in 2006, all he had was the clothes on his back, a bag of mail, and some paperwork. Since then, he's turned his life around and shares the struggles and successes on this podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope you were moved. To connect to the show, book a guest spot. For merch, Patreon, PayPal, and social media links, go to linktr.ee/nowhere to go but up. On Instagram at Nowhere to Go But Up Now. On Twitter at But Up Now. On the YouTube channel at Nowhere to Go But Up Podcast. See you next time.